Hey guys, I thought I would revisit some Ottoman military equipment in the visual sources. So in the last video, I talked a little bit about cavalry tactics, and I used some images from this particular manuscript, which is a copy of a pretty significant Ottoman military chronicle written in verse, so in poetry, called the Shajaat Nameh, and this dates from 1579 or 1580 during a pretty major campaign against Safavid Persia. And as I've discussed in previous videos, they were the Shi'i Muslim rival empire to the Ottomans, who were Sunni, and so they fight many wars over the course of the 16th, 17th centuries, but this is from one of them. And just to give context to this manuscript, this is really a really nice manuscript. Very nice gold inlay. The script is extremely clean and neat. So this was a pretty nice presentation copy. I tried to check in some of like the other pages if there was maybe if it was meant to be given to the Sultan at the time. I'm not sure, but it's at any rate, it's very nice. This is what one of the frontispieces looks like, and what it's written in verse. So uh, you read the lines together. So it's not written in columns where you read one column and then switch to another. It's written into these sets of couplets, and you go just down the page. But that's how a lot of these historical narratives were written, actually. And then the Ottomans also used a lot of poetry just in regular kind of prose historical works. And unlike today, where we kind of see poetry as uh, I guess, like an avenue for like self-expression, or mostly, I guess, we get it through music, popular music now. It was a very important part of their literature, and and what the point is that for historical research, it's actually a very important source, and in some cases, it's our only source. So that's the manuscript, but we're going to look at some of the pages. And what I've done is I've taken images from the illuminated parts. It's a really long manuscript. In PDF, it's like 289 images, and each image has two pages, so significant piece of work. But uh, this campaign was fought in the Caucasus and in Azerbaijan, so uh, the region that's today the country of Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, as I just mentioned, and also parts of the North Caucasus and Russia, um, and a lot of cavalry. But what we have here is we have the Safavids. So you can tell if there's Safavids by this red headdress. The Ottomans call them red head, Kitzelbash, or Surser, depending on what terms they want to use. So the these Safavid cavalry, they were mostly Turkoman tribesmen. They were quite good at doing fire and maneuver against the Ottomans. They weren't as effective in pitched battle, but they were really good at doing kind of these Parthian tactics, which is kind of funny considering that much of the Ottoman army was also from this kind of steppe archer milieu. But you can see the Ottomans have heavy, some guys with the heavier chainmail and arm guards. The barding looks to be metal or cloth, but it's hard to tell just based on the image. And we do have some variety. Um, Looks like we have this is a Pasha. I can read Pasha here, but one of the commanders at any rate. Um, and we have lances. So the Ottomans are using their lances. The Safavids are fire and fall back. But you can see the equipment between the two states is fairly similar. I mean, this kind of helmet, similar helmet, with the van braces and kind of the heavy barding. Although some of the Safavid troops are clearly lighter armed, lighter armored, I should say. Like this guy, he doesn't appear to have any armor on, but he's got the van braces and looks like some leg armor. Um, so this image, I've shown this image before on the channel, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but we do have some Janissaries in kind of a, let's zoom in. We do have some Janissaries in kind of like a formation, a firing formation. It looks like we have some dismounted cavalry. Um, what they're doing here is they're trying to cross the river. And it was a hard crossing, and a lot of guys couldn't make it. I think actually they're pushing the Safavids into this river, but anyway, we have more of this cavalry armor. The commander here, so guy with the blue coat, very fine blue kaftan. He's not very heavily armored, but he does have van braces. Looks like he may have some kind of mail kind of shirt on underneath, but it's not super clear. Just this picture. So, and you do get an idea of some of the pack animals. So they have camels, they have horses. Looks like this guy might be a donkey up here. Okay, this is a few different illustrations. I thought it would be more productive to put them in one as I was putting this together. So zoom in a bit. So here we have um, another battle scene. We've got some Janissaries firing, and I think this is. I can't tell if this is water. Actually, no, it looks like an open field. Now that I look at it a little bit, sometimes the colors, as you can see, are a little bit confusing. But yeah, one thing, not to belabor the point, but again, the equipment between the Ottomans and the Safavids is fairly similar, or at least this way it's depicted very similarly. The main difference seems to be that the Safavid figures are not drawn with the heavy kind of mail um, coat like the Ottomans are, but they do have the van braces, the neck kind of protector um, helmet. And then up here, it looks like these are probably Crimean Tatar auxiliaries, and they have slightly different helmets. They could also be some of the other kind of Tatar steppe people from the North Caucasus that the Ottomans allied with in this campaign. If I can read the couplet quickly, maybe it could tell us. I can't. I don't see if it explain. It doesn't actually explain what who is present here. Um, Couplets above and below. So we'll go on to the next image, which is we've got some artillerists here, and they've got this kind of hat, which seems to have been an artilleryman's hat. And these are light cannon, and in the other sources about this campaign, they are specified as named with described as light cannon. So the Ottomans had many cannons for different purposes. They didn't just have the big heavy siege guns, um, and especially because they were going through the mountains, they used this kind of light artillery. And I mean, if you know more modern history, they did that in the Alpine front in World War One, the Italian front. Same, using kind of lighter artillery that they could move more easily. Here we have, looks like more Safavids again. Got a guy with using lance and shield. Well, he doesn't have a shield, but there's a shield on the ground. Seems he's killing an Ottoman soldier. So that's what we have here. And these images are quite violent. So next one is some kind of siege. It's a siege kind of depiction. It shows the cannons in these kind of castles or walls. We've got janissaries with muskets, and the cavalry in the rear, which seems to suggest how they probably would have deployed in a situation like this, where you obviously want the infantry with firearms to fire at the defenses because cavalrymen, unless they maybe could shoot their bows or dismount and fire their bows, probably not going to do too much to defenses with artillery like that. Next, the next set where we have zoom in, we have more things to look at. So as we can see, some of the horses are drawn with barding, others are not, and that probably tracks with, well, for both empires. These cavalrymen were bringing their own horses and equipment, so not necessarily going to be anything uniform. And I would also think that you've got guys like this with kind of more heavy, looks to be more heavily armored. The barding is a lot looks this barding definitely looks like it's supposed to be armored, like a kind of cataphract type of equipment. And then you've got this guy who's much more lightly armored. No armored barding, and not much armor on him other than it's like arms and his helmet and shield. And these guys are depicted, I think, as dismounted. It looks like, but it's not very clear. The ones in the back. And then we have another. This guy is a notable with the white horse, and there's a caption, but I cannot read the name very clearly. Um, this is another. Okay, this is Osman Pasha, so he's the guy that's in charge of this campaign. And at this point, this guy is. Oh, let's see. This guy is. Let's see if I can make out the caption. Okay, I can't. Another commander, but he does have a mace, as you can see. So we've got the one commander with the sword. He also has much nicer saddle, and we've got another commander with a mace here and band braces. Okay, we have another battle scene. Um, and it looks like these are. Yeah, okay, so this is a Tatar. So this is Han Gire, Han something Gire. Um, so he was the Tatar auxiliary commander, one of them. And as you can see, much different headgear, but he does have a similar kind of armor, arm guards, but he's got the bow and arrow. Uh, and Looks like we have more, yeah, more Tatars. The Tatars attacking. As you can see, they're making quick work of these Persians. And quite interestingly, it's these Tatars are drawn to be more armored than I would think. Like this guy in the middle has what looks like leg armor, and this guy has some kind of mail. It looks like mail, kind of a neck protector, shoulder protector type armor. Not very clear though. Could just be like something meant to be of nice textile. Uh, we have one of the main Ottoman commanders again, but also the Tatar horses are not armored very much. So some interesting patterns. I mean, again, well, not again, but we do have to think about artistic license in these. But I prefer to think of it as, when the artist sat down to paint these, that they're probably drawing based on things that they knew and probably saw firsthand, and also what they knew these guys would have looked like, even if the details are maybe off and the colors are kind of a bit creative. Okay, this one, we have a janissary. He's presenting a captive. This is a pile of, well, I think you can see what that is. We have Safavids being captured, and they also have leg armor, and no chest armor, although they may have been stripped of that. We're not really sure. Um, and then we have, looks like the Ottomans in the back, Ottoman cavalrymen, their helmets on. Then we have the attendants of the commander or the guard. They seem to be carrying, it looks like a bow. I'm not, or it could be they're carrying like his bow and arrow. Let's see, can I read? Shotgun. Her, Herbesirsi aldı. Okay, I'd have to prepare to kind of translate this, but yeah, everyone is took ahead, I think is what it says, and that night, Sharet. Um, yeah. Anyway, this is what's more important to focus on the weapons and armor. But what they're doing is presenting basically captives or their success, let's say, to get around to the commander. Okay. look at, I think we'll just look at this one and then go through the last few quickly. Looks like we have more Tatars, and these Tatars, or they could be Safavids. I think these are all Safavids actually. But anyway, these guys have a little bit finer equipment. We have a lightly armored kind of horse archer here. And yeah, I think these are Tatars. Yeah, so we have the Tatars and they're fleeing the Safavids. Another siege scene here. We have the Janissaries in front, and it looks like the cavalry in the back. So implying the same kind of formation, and that kind of makes sense. You know, you've got you don't want to lay siege in that kind of formation. I'm actually not quite sure. I don't know if this is actually a siege or what's happening here, but anyway. They came. Anyway, and then the city has been sacked. It seems to be the implication here. They are just firing at people. Again, we have more of the same kind of horse archers with armor. Janissary. Looks like, yeah, Janissary carrying someone, it seems. Okay, this one is an interesting image because we actually have a good image of a banner that seems to be a Safavid banner based on who is carrying it. These guys have the red headdress, and it's like this brown kind of banner, black banner with gold. Interesting. And these guys appear to have more mail kind of armor on. And interesting to note, none of the cavalry has is depicted with any kind of firearms on either side, it seems. So that's certainly interesting. And we know they're not shy about depicting, janissaries with firearms, for example. So, and mostly swords, not too many maces. There's a mace here, and we had one before. So this is kind of the equipment. Yeah. These guys might be Georgians from the country of Georgia. They were the king. There was at this time it was many small kingdoms, and the Ottomans, the Safavids would try to kind of influence ones. And for a period of time, Muscovy kind of comes onto the scene to try and influence things in the region in the late 16th century. I think another thing you can kind of see how brutal that they depicted the war here. You've got like people cut up in a lot of ways, and you've got this guy's like being stripped of his clothes. So certainly not a pleasant experience, to say the least. We have another Tatar here. And, again, it's more of a very similar style, but not the same style of armor, as we can see on the left-hand side with what appears to be the Tatars, on the right-hand side with the Safavids. And it's interesting with his leg armor because a lot of the Ottoman ranges don't really seem to have the leg armors this sculpted this way because it looks like it's kind of a like interlaced plates. Actually, now that I think about it, it's very similar to it's kind of similar to the armor on a like cuirassier from like the 30 Years' War with that heavy kind of plate. Um, yeah, interesting. Okay, final set of images. Uh, if you've made it this far, I appreciate it, and I hope you found this interesting. I wanted to include this just because, again, this also shows just kind of the barbarity in this theater of war for the Ottomans. Probably, I would say to some extent, more barbarous, or more, I don't want to use that term, but I'd say more brutal than even against the Europeans. And, granted, the European and Ottoman wars were pretty bad, but this was kind of, this was almost on another level, just because the enmity was, um, I would say, worse in some ways between these two empires. But the depiction of a fortress with artillery. Obviously, the perspective is a bit creative, but then the sky is getting looks like burned alive. Okay, here we have a depiction of, so this is the Ottoman garrison under siege. This is a interesting picture because we have kind of the mercenary type infantry. It looks like. Because they don't have armor. They're clearly not janissaries based on their headgear and clothing. Um, and they are the ones they're firing out of the fortress. We do have some Safavid musketeers, it looks like. So yeah, so they have their own muskets, and they look like, yeah, they're dismounted cavalry, and they've picked up muskets. So that's interesting. And they've still wearing the armor. So okay, that would be a neat miniature. If some manufacturer would sculpt that for me, that would be really cool. They've got the cavalry armor, but they're carrying their muskets. So that's pretty neat. It was a surprise going through these for me. And we also have more of these kind of mercenary uh, professional infantry, or whatever you'd like to call them, Sekban. They are firing out of the fortress. And we have the archery kind of combat here. Um, okay, well, thank you for staying with me. If you made it to the end, I appreciate it. I hope you found this kind of interesting. I do these videos in this kind of format where I'm just looking through it because there's just not that much research on this kind of weapons and armor that just does it like this, just going through kind of the visual sources and looking at things. So I hope you find this interesting at least. And uh, yeah, if you have any questions or suggestions, leave a comment, of course, and I'll try to do my best to answer it. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you all in the next video.